Alright, ladies and gentlemen, got the 2015 Cat Wildcat, and I am doing some maintenance and repairs on her. Doing the brakes, going brass pads, and also replacing all 4 hub bearings while I'm at it, because that rear one, this front one, and the other rear one were in pretty bad shape. This one wasn't that bad, but I'm gonna go ahead and replace it anyway, just so so it's done. But I'm just gonna kind of show you how to get that hub bearing out. I think all the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory as far as getting the hub off and the brakes, but mine may be a little different because I do have aftermarket tie rod ends. But anyway, that's not going to change anything. So I'll try to make this video short and simple, but anyway, just, stay with me and we'll get this hub off, and I'll show you how I'm getting the bearings in and out. I will say I'm just now starting this video, but I've already done this front hub and both rear ones, and I did have to put a new brake caliper on the back here, because the other one it kind of got messed up from lack of maintenance on my part. You can see the rotor, just brake pad disappeared and the rotor started rubbing on the caliper itself, and that's what happens when you don't do your due diligence of maintenance. So anyway, like the stock calipers are $190 a piece. I got 2 off Amazon for like 50 bucks. They're probably Chinese made. We're gonna see how good they are. I didn't put this one on just because the other one on the other side was fine. I just cleaned it all up and greased the pins, and it works okay, so I wasn't gonna go through the trouble. I'll just save that for a spare or something. But like I said previously, I am going with brass pads, and I can't remember, I got these off Amazon through a guy, and I cannot remember his company or his name, but they were $180 for the set for all 4 corners. But anyway, back to this. Like I said, I've already done this front and both the back. I don't have my tripod with me, so this video isn't going to be as good because I can't hold this camera and work on it at the same time. So I will, just like I said before, if it's pretty self-explanatory taking this stuff apart and all. I'll just use I think it's 13 or 14. I think it's, take these 2 bolts out for your bracket, pull the caliper off, set it to the side, take this nut off. I'm using 1 3/16", but I think that might be metric, like a 30 something maybe. But I mean, like I said, I'm using a 6-point 1 3/16". I wouldn't use a 12-point on here. I would, I try to always use 6-point sockets. But anyway, then for your ball joints, just take this bolt out, and one on the bottom down here, I think it was a 14, and get those taken apart there and there, and then your tie rod in. But like I said, I don't have my tripod, so I can't have the camera running while I'm doing this because I need both hands. But anyway, like I say, all that's pretty self-explanatory. I just mainly wanted to make a video of getting the bearing in and out, because I haven't found a whole lot of videos, if any, I can't recall, on anyone showing how to get that bearing in and out. But anyway, I will get a video of that and show you, how it's taken in and out. Try this one-handed. That's all it takes to get those bolts out. They're just 3 bolts like so. This is something that I found works pretty good for me, is a little wedge I have. I'll drive down in the split of that hub where the ball joint goes in, and it spreads it enough that becomes pretty loose, and most of the time will just fall out like that. And I'll just do the top one the same way. You can see that split. I'll just drive that little wedge in there just a little bit. It don't take a whole lot, and it comes, most of the time it'll come right out. Alright, so I got the hub off. I cleaned it up. The thing was full of gunk, and you can see the snap ring in here. You just take that snap ring out and then flip this hub over, and that bearing will press out through this side. It'll come up this way after you remove the snap ring. So I removed the snap ring, and I had to just kind of find me something that the hub would sit on and allow the bearing to slide through. And then I'm just using a big impact socket on the inside in there to press down on the bearing. Now, because I don't have the proper stuff, and this is just a hydraulic press I'm using here at our shop. So anyway, if you have a hydraulic press, maybe you have the right stuff to do all this, or you can take it somewhere and have it done. But anyway, we'll see how this goes. The other 3 were pretty dang hard to get out. Even for this press, it acted like it was struggling. But I think this bearing has been the best one out of the 4 so far. And looking at it, I think it has been replaced at one time. So it may come out a lot easier than the other ones did, but who knows. That one's coming out a lot easier. Yeah, that was a whole lot easier. So now I'll get the new bearing and all, and yeah, that one wasn't bad at all, but it's made in China bearing. It might be why it's still good. But I'll prep this hub. I'll just come in here and just smear that with some anti-seize, and then press the new bearing in. And in case anyone's wondering, these are the bearings that I went with from All Balls Racing. It's a AB251496 part number. Of course, made in China. Oh well. But I got the hub. I wiped it out with a clean rag, then just put some anti-seize in there. You don't have to use anti-seize. You can use anything that's going to kind of give it somewhat of a slick sliding surface. I mean, it's so tight, whatever you put in there is going, for the most part, be pressed out, squished out, or what have you. But you just don't want to put it in there dry. You want some oil, something in there that'll give it something slick, and that way it's less of a chance of it getting burred up and scuffed and scratched and what have you. But let me get this bearing ready and I'll get it set up. Alright, so I've got the bearing set up there and my little makeshift stand thing. You just want to make sure everything's level. That way you're pushing that bearing square and straight into the hub. Once you get that far, I've been using the old bearing to make sure you got that lined up really good. And I'll just use the old bearing to press it the rest of the way in. There you have it. Just make sure it's I don't know if I can get this to pick up, but just make sure you get that bearing pressed in past that groove so you can get your snap ring back in there. And then you'll be put your snap ring in and you'll be good to go to put everything back together. And just my preference, before I put the hub and bearing assembly back on, I'll just coat this in some anti-seize. Now I would use anti-seize on this, you know, just to save you some trouble in the future when you have to either replace this axle or replace the bearing again. That should keep it from seizing up, depending on how much mud and water you're in. This thing lives in mud and water, so that's why I kind of am using anti-seize on everything. And I'll put, after I get that on and I go to put the hub on, I'll put anti-seize on here, and I'll even put anti-seize on the threads. And some people may want to use Loctite, but I'm not going to do that because it has a pin that holds it, so there's no need, in my opinion, to have Loctite on this nut. I broke a socket and a pull bar trying to get the nuts off of here. I had to heat them up, or two of them I had to heat up with a torch just to get it off. But anyway, I wouldn't put any Loctite on this. I would put anti-seize on it, anti-seize on this, and anti-seize on that. Now for the ball joint bolts, spindle bolts, I will put a dab of red Loctite on there. I said dab, that might be a little much, but that's one thing I will use Loctite on. Get that top one in there. I don't have to get that bottom one. I say I only got one hand holding the camera, so I'll probably end up having to stop and use both hands again. Alright, back together, minus the brakes, and I got to put a cotter pin in here. And I did use a new nut. I went ahead and bought 4 new nuts, and I'm glad I did, because like I say, I had to heat 2 of them up with a torch to be able to get them off. I don't know they had just been on there so long, or if somebody over tightened them. I don't know. I don't know the specific torque for this nut, but I'm going to say I try to go around 150 foot-pounds and then tighten it up until the hole lines up for the cotter pin. But that's just me. I don't see no reason I'm having to be any tighter than that. But anyway, if you'd like, I'll just look up the specs on it and see what it is. But like I say, I typically go 150 and then tighten it up to get it to line up with the hole. That's pretty much it for the hub bearing. That's basically really what I wanted to show. All the brakes and things like that, there's, they're pretty self-explanatory for anyone with mechanical knowledge, and this was just to kind of show the hub bearing and replacement of it. And it's not too terribly bad. The back ones are a lot easier just because you're not having to deal with these ball joints and the tie rod end. That could be a little aggravating sometimes, but the back is a whole lot easier than the front. But anyway, that's that. Hope this video helps you out, and appreciate you watching. Thanks. Alright, I showed you a little before video. This is after. It's a lot better.